Imagine holding a message from a lost civilization, written in a language no one alive can read. Thousands of such messages exist, baffling experts for centuries. One script features a man holding a fish, another looks like dancing figures, and one might not even be a language at all, but an elaborate cosmic joke. For some, we can pronounce the words but have no idea what they mean. For others, the symbols themselves are a complete enigma. These are silent witnesses to empires, beliefs, and daily lives that have vanished, leaving behind tantalizing puzzles. Number 8. Khitan Large Script. Picture this: a powerful empire, the Liao Dynasty, flourishing in Manchuria and parts of northern China, Mongolia, and the Russian Far East over 1,000 years ago. These were the Khitan people, nomadic warriors, who established a vast empire that lasted from 907 to 1125. They weren't just skilled on horseback, they also wanted to record their history, their laws, and their triumphs in their own unique way. So they created not one, but two writing systems: the Khitan Large Script and the Khitan Small Script. The Large Script, proclaimed by order of Emperor Yeu Abaoji in 920 CE, is the more enigmatic of the two. It looks, at first glance, a bit like Chinese characters. Many of its symbols were indeed borrowed or adapted from Chinese, but they were used to write the Khitan language, which is extinct and whose exact linguistic affiliation is still debated by scholars, though many believe it was related to Mongolic languages. The discovery of Khitan Large Script texts wasn't a single eureka moment, but a gradual process. Inscriptions began to surface in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, primarily on monumental stelae, epitaphs for Khitan nobility, and occasionally on smaller objects, like mirrors or paisas, official tablets of authority. These weren't casual scribbles. They were often grand official pronouncements meant to last. One of the most significant sources for the large script comes from tombs where intricately carved memorial tablets praise the deeds and lineage of the deceased. These inscriptions can be quite lengthy, offering potentially rich historical and cultural information, if only we could fully unlock them. The script itself is primarily logographic, meaning each character ideally represents a whole word or morpheme, much like classical Chinese. However, it also seems to have incorporated some phonetic elements. Scholars have identified several hundred distinct characters, perhaps numbering up to around 1,000 or even more, though the exact count is uncertain due to variations and the difficulty in distinguishing unique glyphs from variants. Some characters seem to be original Khitan inventions, not directly traceable to Chinese sources. So, what makes it so tough to crack? First, the Khitan language itself is poorly understood. We have no living speakers, and while it's relative, the Khitan Small Script, which was syllabic and inspired by Uyghur script, is partially deciphered and provides some clues. It's not a direct Rosetta Stone. The Small Script texts, being phonetic, give us a better idea of how Khitan sounded, and some Khitan words have been reconstructed. This helps, but the Large Script often uses different conventions. Furthermore, while there are some Chinese texts alongside Khitan ones in certain contexts, true bilingual inscriptions that would offer direct translations are scarce and often not detailed enough. Many of the Large Script characters are unique, and even when they resemble Chinese characters, it's a gamble to assume they have the same meaning or a related sound. Imagine trying to read English written in Cyrillic letters, but some letters are made up, and others look like Cyrillic but stand for completely different sounds or ideas. That's a simplified analogy for the challenge. Researchers had made some progress. By comparing repeated phrases in epitaphs such as dates, titles, or formulaic expressions, and by cross-referencing with the Khitan small script and known historical information from Chinese records about the Liao Dynasty, some characters have been tentatively identified. For instance, words for emperor, state year, month, and certain numbers have been proposed. Chinese scholars, Japanese researchers, and Russian linguists have all contributed to this slow, painstaking work. They pore over rubbings of inscriptions, analyze character frequencies, and look for patterns. Each identified character is a small victory. The mystery that the Khitan Large Script holds is immense. Unlocking it fully would give us a direct voice from the Khitan elite. We could read their own accounts of their history, their laws, their poetry, and perhaps their beliefs, unfiltered by Chinese historical narratives, which, while valuable, were often written from the perspective of a rival or successor state. What did they truly think of their neighbors like Song, China, or Goryeo, Korea? How did their unique dual administrative system, governing nomadic Khitans and settled agricultural populations differently, actually function at a textual level? The grand inscriptions on stone are silent, waiting for the day their full stories can be told. The script is a testament to a vibrant culture that sought to cement its identity in writing, a legacy that continues to challenge and fascinate us. Number 7. Isthmian Script, Epi-Olmec Script. Deep in the tropical lowlands of Mesoamerica, in what is now southern Veracruz and western Tabasco in Mexico, a culture flourished between roughly 300 BCE and 250 CE. This was the Epi-Olmec culture. Epi-Olmec, meaning after the Olmecs, the region's earlier, foundational civilization famous for its colossal stone heads. The Epi-Olmecs carried on some Olmec traditions, but also developed their own distinct cultural traits, including a sophisticated writing system known as the Isthmian, or Epi-Olmec script. This script is one of the earliest Mesoamerican writing systems, and it presents a fascinating, though frustratingly incomplete picture. The script is known from a mere handful of artifacts, making its study incredibly challenging. The most famous of these is the Logographic stela, a monumental stone slab discovered in 1986 near the Ocula River. This stela is a researcher's dream and nightmare. It contains one of the longest Isthmian texts found to date, over 500 glyphs arranged in 21 columns, alongside a portrait of a ruler in elaborate regalia. It also features 2 long count dates, a calendrical system shared with the later Maya, which placed the events described on the stela in 143 CE and 156 CE. Another keep-up is the Tuxtla statuette, a small greenstone figure of a duck-billed person discovered much earlier in 1902. It has a shorter inscription of about 75 glyphs and a long count date corresponding to 162 CE. Other, much shorter examples include inscriptions on Tres Zapotes, Stala, etc., and a potsherd from Chiapa de Corzo. The extreme scarcity of texts is the primary hurdle for decipherment. Imagine trying to learn English with only a few pages from different books. The Isthmian script itself is visually intricate. It's a logosyllabic system, meaning it uses a combination of logograms, signs representing whole words, and syllabograms, signs representing syllables. The glyphs are often pictorial, depicting human heads, animal figures, body parts, and various objects, but many are also more abstract. They are typically arranged in columns, read from top to bottom. Presence of the long count calendar on the Logographic stela and the Tuxtla statuette was an early breakthrough, as this system was already well understood from Mayan epigraphy, allowing scholars to at least read the dates confidently. The most prominent and debated attempt at decipherment came in the 1990s from linguist John Justison and anthropologist Terence Kaufman. After years of intensive study, particularly focusing on the Lamojara Stala one, they proposed in 1993 that the script records an archaic form of a Zoquian language, specifically a member of the Mixi-Zoquian language family, still spoken in the Isthmus of Tehuantepec region today. Their decipherment was based on several lines of evidence, analyzing the script's structure, looking for patterns in glyph sequences, trying to match these with reconstructed forms of pre-Proto-Zoquian. They proposed phonetic values for many of the syllabograms and meanings for some logograms. According to their interpretation, the Lamojara Stela, one narrates the rise to power of a warrior king named Harvester Mountain Lord, detailing his battles, rituals, and dynastic claims. However, the Justison Kaufman decipherment, while a monumental scholarly achievement, has not achieved universal acceptance. The main criticism revolves around the very small corpus of available texts. With so few examples, it's difficult to independently verify the proposed phonetic values and grammatical interpretations. Critics argue that the number of unknowns is so high that alternative readings or even different language attributions might still be possible. Some glyphs remain unassigned, and some interpretations rely on reconstructed vocabulary that isn't directly attested. The discovery of new texts is crucial to either confirm, refine, or refute their hypothesis. Until then, the debate continues. Stephen Houston and Michael Coe, for example, have been prominent skeptics, questioning the methodology and the certainty of the proposed readings. The Isthmian Script holds the key to understanding a crucial period in Mesoamerican history, the transition from the Olmec florescence to the rise of classic civilizations like the Maya. What was the precise relationship between the Epi-Olmec and the Olmecs? Did the Olmecs themselves have a fully developed writing system from which Isthmian evolved? Or was Isthmian a more novel development? Casco block, an Olmec backed with incised symbols, hints at earlier Olmec writing. But its status and relationship to Isthmian are still unclear. Fully deciphering the Isthmian script would illuminate the political history, religious beliefs, and social structure of the Epi-Olmec people. It could tell us about their interactions with neighboring cultures and their place in the complex tapestry of Mesoamerican civilization. For now, those few silent stones guard their secrets, offering tantalizing glimpses into a lost world heavily reliant on the interpretations of a few dedicated scholars. The story they tell, whether of Harvester Mountain Lord or someone else, is waiting for more voices, or rather more texts, to confirm its telling. Number 6. Khitan hieroglyphs. Imagine wandering through the ruins of ancient Minoan Crete, the legendary civilization of King Minos, the Labyrinth, and the Minotaur. Long before the Greeks developed their alphabet, the Minoans were using their own unique forms of writing. One of these, and the earliest of the 3 distinct Khitan scripts from the Bronze Age, is known as Khitan hieroglyphs. It's a beautiful pictorial script that offers a window into the very dawn of Minoan written administration, emerging around 2100 BCE and used for several centuries, particularly during the Proto-Glacial Old Palace period. The script was first brought to prominent attention by the famed archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans, who also excavated the Palace of Knossos. Evans, in his quest to understand Minoan civilization, identified these hieroglyphic signs on various artifacts, distinguishing them from the later Lignea A and Lignea B scripts. Khitan hieroglyphs are found primarily on small clay documents like tablets, bars, and medallions, but most characteristically on seal stones. These seals, often intricately carved from semi-precious stones like agate, carnelian, or jasper, were used to impress their unique symbols onto clay, likely for administrative purposes, such as sealing documents or authenticating goods. The signs themselves are quite charming and evocative. They are clearly pictographic in origin, depicting recognizable objects such as human body parts, eyes, hands, feet, animals, cats, goats, birds, squid, plants, saffron, flowers, branches, arrows, daggers, marine elements, ships, waves, and various geos-daggerts, marine amulets. Scholars have catalogued around 137 main signs along with numerals, ligatures, combinations of signs, and other symbols whose function isn't fully clear. One of the most famous and most puzzling artifacts, sometimes associated with Cretan hieroglyphs, or at least the broader sphere of early Aegean writing, is the Phaistos disc, discovered in 1908 at the Minoan Palace of Phaistos. This fired clay disc, about 15 centimeters in diameter, is covered on both sides with a spiral of stamped hieroglyphic-like symbols. It's unique. Nothing else quite like it has ever been found. The 241 or 242 tokens, impressions on the disc, were made by pressing 45 distinct stamps into the soft clay before it was fired. The script on the Phaistos disc is not identical to the standard Cretan hieroglyphs found on seals and tablets, but it shares a similar pictorial quality. Its origin, Cretan or foreign. Its purpose, religious hymn, magical incantation, board game. And its meaning remain complete mysteries, making it one of archaeology's most famous enigmas. Deciphering Cretan hieroglyphs has proven to be a difficult task, even more so than Linear A. The primary challenge is the nature of the inscriptions. Most are very short, often consisting of just a few signs, especially those on seal stones. These are thought to represent names, titles, or places, but without more context or longer narrative texts, it's hard to make progress. While Linear A is thought to have evolved from Cretan hieroglyphs, or perhaps both evolved from a common ancestor, the relationship isn't straightforward enough to simply transfer phonetic values from Linear A, many of which are known via Linear B, directly to the hieroglyphs. Some signs do look similar across the two scripts, but others are unique to the hieroglyphic system. Furthermore, the underlying language recorded by Cretan hieroglyphs is unknown, though it's widely presumed to be the same Minoan language or languages that Linear A records. Since Minoan itself is undeciphered, this adds another layer of complexity. Scholars like Louis Godert and Jean-Pierre Olivier have done extensive work cataloging and analyzing the hieroglyphic inscriptions, particularly the clay documents from palace archives at Knossos, Malia, and Petrus. They have identified patterns, potential logograms, signs representing whole words or concepts like WINE or OLIVE, and possible administrative formulas. The numerical system seems relatively clear, similar to those used in other Aegean scripts. However, a full phonetic decipherment remains elusive. Some tentative identifications of personal names or place names have been proposed, often by comparing recurring sign groups on seals with names known from Linear A or B contexts, but these are speculative. The intrigue of Cretan hieroglyphs lies in their antiquity and their artistry. They represent one of the earliest attempts at writing in the Aegean world, a crucial step in the development of literacy in Europe. Unlocking this script would shed light on the early stages of Minoan civilization, its social structure, its economy, and perhaps its religious beliefs during the period when the first great palaces were being built. What transactions were they recording? What deities or spirits did their charming animal and plant symbols invoke? The seals, with their miniature masterpieces of carving, were clearly important, personal or official items. What did they signify to their owners? Cretan hieroglyphs are a beautiful silent testament to a sophisticated culture on the cusp of great achievements, their messages still tantalizingly out of reach, like whispers from the dawn of European civilization. Each new discovery of an inscribed seal or clay tablet brings fresh hope that more pieces of this ancient puzzle will fall into place. Number 5. Voynich, manuscript. Prepare to enter a world of pure, unadulterated mystery with the Voynich manuscript, arguably the most famous undeciphered document in the world. It's not ancient in the way of cuneiform tablets or Egyptian hieroglyphs, but its secrets are just as deep, if not deeper, because we don't even know for sure what kind of secret it's keeping. The manuscript is a codex, a handwritten book filled with bizarre illustrations and an elegant flowing script that no one has been able to read. Parchment has been carbon dated to the early 15th century, specifically between 1404 and 1438, and the ink and pigments are consistent with that period. So, it's genuinely old, but what is it? The manuscript gets its name from Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish-American antique book dealer who acquired it in 1912 from a collection of the Jesuit Collegio Romano in Italy. Its earlier provenance is somewhat traceable, with letters suggesting it was once owned by Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia in the late 16th century, who was a great patron of alchemists and mystics. It may have passed through the hands of alchemists like Thaddeus Highjack and possibly even John Dee, the Elizabethan scholar and occultist, before finding its way to Athanasius Kircher, a 17th century Jesuit scholar famous for his attempts to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphs, mostly unsuccessfully as it turned out. After Kircher, it largely disappeared from historical record until Voynich rediscovered it. Today it resides in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. Catalogued as MS-408, content is what makes the Voynich manuscript so utterly baffling and captivating. It's about 240 vellum pages long, though some pages are missing. The text is written from left to right, and the script, often called Voynichese, consists of about 20 to 30 distinct glyphs, some of which resemble Latin letters or numerals, while others are unique. Some glyphs appear only a few times, while others are very common. Text flows smoothly, with clear word divisions, and statistical analysis has shown that it has features consistent with natural languages, such as word length distributions, letter frequencies, and entropy patterns that differ from random gibberish. This suggests it might be a real language, or a very cleverly constructed cipher. The illustrations are just as strange as the script. They are colorful, if somewhat crudely drawn, and can be broadly categorized into sections. The herbal or botanical section features drawings of numerous plants, none of which can be definitively identified with any known species. They often combine elements from different plants or are entirely fantastical. The astronomical or astrological section contains circular diagrams with suns, moons, stars, and zodiac-like symbols, often intricate and elaborate, but not corresponding to any known astronomical or astrological system. The balneological section is perhaps the most curious, depicting numerous small naked female figures, many with swollen abdomens, bathing in pools or elaborate networks of tubs and pipes, sometimes green or blue, filled with strange fluids. Cosmological section shows more circular diagrams, more abstract and harder to interpret, possibly maps or representations of unknown processes. The pharmaceutical section displays arrays of what look like plant parts, roots, leaves, next to apothecary-style jars with short snippets of text that might be labels or recipes. Finally, there's a recipe section, consisting of continuous text broken into short paragraphs, each marked with a star, like cower or bullet point, suggesting a list of instructions or items. The decipherment attempts are legendary and legion. Everyone from top military cryptographers of World War I, and like William Friedman, who famously concluded it might be an early attempt at a constructed philosophical language, to amateur sleuths and academic linguists have tried and failed to crack it. Theories abound. Is it an unknown natural language written in a unique alphabet? If so, which language family? Proposals have ranged from various European languages to Asian languages like Manchu, and even Nahuatl from Mesoamerica, but none have stuck. Is it a cipher? If so, what kind? Simple substitution ciphers have been ruled out. More complex polyalphabetic ciphers, or even a codebook system, have been suggested. The brevity of individual words and the repetition patterns are puzzling for many standard cipher types. Is it a sophisticated hoax? Perhaps created in the 15th century to dupe a wealthy collector, or even by Voynich himself, though carbon dating makes this unlikely for the parchment itself. If it's a hoax, it's an incredibly elaborate and consistent one. Is it glossolalia, or speaking in tongues written down? Some have suggested it might be the product of someone in a trance-like state producing text that has the appearance of language but no actual meaning. Could it be an artificial or constructed language, like those invented by philosophers or mystics? No single theory has gained widespread acceptance, because no proposed decipherment has led to a verifiable, consistent reading of any significant portion of the text. Some researchers claim to have identified individual words, or even sentences, often by linking them to the illustrations, but these are usually isolated and not replicable across the manuscript. The unique nature of the plants and diagrams means they offer few unambiguous clues. If the plant is alien, how can you use it to guess the word for leaf? The Voynich manuscript remains one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. Is it a repository of lost alchemical or medical knowledge? Coded message from a secret society? A forgotten natural language? Or the most brilliant and enduring literary hoax ever perpetrated? Its allure lies in its utter strangeness, its resistance to interpretation, and the tantalizing possibility that it holds a profound secret, or perhaps no secret at all, just an elaborate illusion. Pages continue to whisper in their unknown tongue, challenging anyone who dares to listen. Number 4. Rongorongo. Imagine one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth. Easter Island or Rapa Nui, famous for its colossal stone statues known as moai. This tiny speck of land in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from any continent, was also home to a unique and mysterious writing system called Rongorongo. The script consists of intricate glyphs carved onto wooden tablets and other objects, and its meaning was tragically lost before it could be fully understood by the outside world. The existence of Rongorongo was first reported to the wider world by Eugene Irod, a lay missionary who arrived on Easter Island in 1864. He noted that in almost every house there were wooden tablets or staves covered with hieroglyphic characters. However, just a few years later, when Bishop Florentin Etienne Tepano-Josson of Tahiti became interested in these tablets and tried to collect them, most had already disappeared. Many were reportedly burned, hidden, or simply decayed. Today, only about 24 objects bearing Rongorongo inscriptions are known to exist, scattered in museums and private collections around the world. These include wooden tablets, a birdman's staff, a ri'imiro, a crescent-shaped pectoral ornament, and even a snuff box. The small number of surviving texts is a major obstacle to decipherment. The Rongorongo script is visually striking. The glyphs are stylized representations of humans, animals, especially birds, fish, and rats, plants, celestial objects, sun, moon, and geometric shapes. There are hundreds of distinct glyphs, though the exact number is debated. They are typically incised into the wood, often with remarkable precision. One of the most distinctive features of Rongorongo is its writing direction. It is written in a system called reverse bostrophaidon. This means you read the first line from left to right. Then you rotate the tablet 180 degrees to read the next line also from left to right, which is now effectively right to left from the perspective of the previous line and upside down. This continues, flipping the tablet for each new line. The loss of knowledge about Rongorongo is a tragic story. In the 1860s, shortly before Irad's arrival, Peruvian slave raiders decimated the Rapa Nui population, abducting a significant portion of the islanders, including many of the elite and learned individuals who might have been literate in Rongorongo. Subsequent European-introduced diseases further devastated the remaining population. By the time researchers became seriously interested in the script, very few Rapa Nui people, if any, could genuinely read the tablets. Oral traditions about the script are fragmented, sometimes contradictory, and often mixed with later interpretations or attempts to reconstruct lost knowledge. Some islanders in the late 19th century attempted to read the tablets for visitors, but it's widely believed they were either reciting memorized chants loosely associated with the tablets, or simply improvising rather than truly decoding the glyphs. This makes decipherment incredibly difficult. We have no Rosetta Stone, no bilingual text to provide a key. The Rapa Nui language, a Polynesian language, has also evolved since the script was in use, and the exact form of the language recorded, if it indeed records language directly, is uncertain. Was Rongorongo a true writing system capable of representing full speech like a syllabary or a logography, or was it a more limited system, perhaps a mnemonic device to aid in the recitation of genealogies, chants, proverbs, or myths? This fundamental question is still debated. Some scholars like Stephen Roger Fisher have argued it is a proto-writing system, perhaps inspired by contact with European writing, but not a direct borrowing. Fisher famously proposed a decipherment of one tablet, the Santiago staff, claiming it recorded a creation chant, specifically a series of procreation couplets, X copulated with Y. There issued forth Xi. This was based on identifying a recurring three-glyph pattern, which he interpreted as a phallus symbol, a copulation, connector, and an offspring. While initially sensational, Fisher's decipherment has not been widely accepted by other scholars in the field who point to methodological issues and the lack of broader applicability to other tablets. Other researchers have explored possible calendrical or astronomical information encoded in the glyphs, or connections to the island's unique birdman cult. Computational linguists have analyzed the statistical properties of the glyph sequences, looking for patterns that might indicate linguistic structure. Despite many efforts, no proposed decipherment has achieved a consensus. The isolation of Easter Island also makes it hard to find related scripts. Rongorongo appears to be a unique invention, though the ultimate stimulus for its creation, entirely indigenous or sparked by some distant unrecorded contact, is another layer of the mystery. Rongorongo holds the secrets of a remarkable and resilient culture that created monumental art and a complex society in extreme isolation. What knowledge did these carefully carved tablets contain? Were they histories of the island's clans? Details of religious rituals? Navigational charts? Or something else entirely? The elegant, enigmatic glyphs, the dancing figures, the birdmen, the otherworldly creatures seem to beckon us from a lost world. Until a breakthrough occurs, possibly through the discovery of new texts or a new methodological approach, Rongorongo will remain a powerful symbol of lost knowledge and the fragility of cultural memory, a silent testament to the ingenuity of the Rapa Nui people. Number 3. Proto-Elamite. Let's journey back over 5,000 years to ancient Iran, to a civilization known as Elam, which flourished in what is now the southwestern part of the country. The Elamites were contemporaries of the early Sumerians in Mesopotamia, and, like their neighbors, they were among the first people on Earth to develop writing. One of their earliest writing systems, and one of the oldest undeciphered scripts in the world, is called Proto-Elamite. It appeared around 3100 BC, very shortly after the emergence of Proto-Cuneiform in Mesopotamia, and was used for a relatively brief period, perhaps a couple of centuries, before disappearing. The script was first discovered by French archaeologists excavating the ancient city of Susa, a major Elamite center, in the early 20th century. Thousands of clay tablets inscribed with Proto-Elamite have since been unearthed, not only at Susa, but also at other sites across the Iranian plateau, such as Tepe Siilk, Tepe Yahya, and Shar-e-Sokhta, indicating a surprising widespread use for administrative and economic purposes. These aren't epic poems or royal decrees. The vast majority of Proto-Elamite texts are mundane administrative records, lists of goods, tallies of livestock, records of labor, and allocations of rations. They tell us about the bureaucracy and economic organization of a very early urban society. The Proto-Elamite script is visually distinct. It consists of a mixture of what appear to be pictographic signs, representing objects like animals, containers, or tools, and more abstract geometric symbols. It also includes a well-developed numerical system which is largely understood and based on a decimal, base 10, system for counting discrete objects like animals or humans, and a bisexagesimal system related to base 60, like the Sumerians used for some things, for measures of grain. Scholars have identified hundreds of distinct signs, with estimates ranging from over 1,000 to nearly 1,900 if all variants are counted, though many of these are likely variations of the same basic sign or specialized numerical notations. The texts are typically written from right to left, with numerical signs often following the signs for the objects being counted. Despite the administrative nature of the texts and our understanding of the numerical system, deciphering the non-numerical signs and the underlying language has proven exceptionally difficult. One major challenge is that the Elamite language itself, even in its later cuneiform attested forms like Old Elamite, Middle Elamite, and Achaemenid Elamite, is a language isolate, meaning it has no known living relatives and doesn't clearly fit into any major language family like Indo-European or Semitic. While it's presumed that Proto-Elamite records an early stage of this Elamite language, the great time depth and the differences in script make direct connections hard to establish. Furthermore, there's no Proto-Elamite Rosetta Stone, no bilingual or trilingual inscription that provides a direct translation into a known language. The script also seems to have a relatively high number of unique signs, hypax legomena, signs that appear only once, which makes it difficult to establish consistent meanings or phonetic values. Many of the signs are abstract, and even the pictographic ones can be ambiguous. Is that a picture of a specific type of jar, or just jar in general? Or does it represent something else entirely, perhaps phonetically? Researchers have made some progress by focusing on the structure of the texts and the context provided by the numerical information. For example, by identifying patterns of signs that frequently appear with depictions of livestock or grain, scholars can make educated guesses about which signs might represent sheep, barley, or specific types of officials or institutions. The Proto-Elamite Script Decipherment Project, PSDP, led by Jacob Dahl at Oxford University, has been instrumental in creating high-quality digital images of the tablets using reflectance transformation of the inscribed surfaces. This has helped in accurately identifying signs and understanding the scribal practices. There's also a later script from the same region called Lignea Elamite, used around 2300 to 1850 BCE, which itself was long undeciphered. Very recently, a team of scholars led by François Zesset claimed a breakthrough in deciphering Lignea Elamite, proposing phonetic values for many of its signs and identifying it as recording the Elamite language. This is a hugely significant development for Linya-Elamite. However, Proto-Elamite is older and uses a different set of signs, though some connections or evolutionary links might exist. Decipher has suggested that Proto-Elamite might be a precursor to Linya-Elamite. But the relationship is complex and still under investigation. Whether the Linya-Elamite decipherment will directly unlock Proto-Elamite remains to be seen, as the scripts and possibly even the conventions of writing might differ significantly. Unlocking Proto-Elamite would be a monumental achievement. It would give us direct insight into the very beginnings of Elamite civilization, its economy, its social structure, and possibly even its early forms of belief or symbolism, all from their own perspective. It would also shed more light on the birth of writing itself, a phenomenon that seems to have occurred independently or semi-independently in only a few places in the world. Was Proto-Elamite inspired by Mesopotamian Proto-Cuneiform, or was it a largely independent invention? The script's unique character suggests a significant degree of local innovation. For now, these thousands of clay tablets, filled with their neat rows of curious symbols and numbers, remain largely silent, a testament to a complex society that meticulously managed its resources over 5 millennia ago, their words still waiting to be fully heard. Step into the sun-drenched world of Minoan Crete, a civilization that flourished on the Aegean island from around 2700 to 1450 BC, predating classical Greece by centuries. This was the culture of sprawling palaces like Knossos, Phaistos, and Malia, of vibrant frescoes depicting bull leapers and graceful dolphins, and of sophisticated artistry in pottery and metalwork. The Minoans also had their own system of writing, or rather, systems. The one that has most tantalized and frustrated scholars is lineal A, used from about 1800 BCE to 1450 BC. Lineal A inscriptions have been found on clay tablets, stone offering vessels, libation tables, seals, and pottery, primarily in Crete, but also at sites in the Aegean Islands, mainland Greece, and even the Levant, attesting to Minoan trade and influence. Lineal A was discovered by British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans during his excavations at Knossos in the early 20th century. He named it Lineal because its signs were simpler and more cursive than the earlier Cretan hieroglyph found at Mossos, which he called Lineal B. The great breakthrough for Aegean scripts came in 1952 when Michael Ventris, an Inuit architect, and Amatis 52, when Michael Ventrist, that Lineal B was used to write an early form of Greek, now known as Mycenaean Greek, used by the Mycenaeans who came to dominate Crete after the Minoan decrane. This was a monumental achievement. The decipherment of Lineal B had an immediate impact on the study of Lineal A because many of the signs in the two scripts are visually identical or very similar. Lineal A is primarily a syllabic script, meaning each sign represents a syllable, like K, T, roar. It has around 90 main phonetic signs, plus a number of logograms, signs representing whole words or commodities like WINEF, IGS, OLIVES, NAN, double-usted numerical system, decenimo. Thanks to the overlap with Lineal B, scholars can confidently assign phonetic values to about 60 to 70% of the Lineal syllabic signs. So, we can read or pronounce many Lineal A words. For example, a common three-sign group in Lineal A is A, S, A, S, A, R, A, M, E. We can sound it out. Problem is, we don't know what it means. This is the central challenge of Lineal A. The underlying language, known simply as Minoan, is undeciphered and has no known living relatives. It is not Greek, unlike Lineal B. It doesn't appear to be related to Indo-European languages like Hittite, nor to Semitic languages from the Near East, nor to Egyptian. Numerous attempts have been made to link Minoan to various language families: Luwian and Anatolian language, Lycian, Semitic, Indo-Iranian, even Basque, but none of these hypotheses have gained widespread acceptance or produced consistent, verifiable translations of Linean A texts. The Minoan language remains an isolate, a linguistic ghost. Most Linear A inscriptions are short and administrative, much like the Proto-Elamite tablets. They are typically lists of commodities, personnel, or livestock, often found in palace archives. These texts detail the economic workings of Minoan palatial centers. For example, a tablet might list quantities of wheat, wine, or oil, alongside names or titles. While we can often identify the logograms for the commodities and read the numbers, the accompanying words, presumably personal names, place names, or occupational titles, remain opaque. There are some longer texts, particularly on stone libation tables found in peak sanctuaries, Minoan religious sites on mountaintops, and other cultic contexts. These are thought to be religious dedications or invocations. The aforementioned ASASARAME, for instance, appears in such religious contexts and is often hypothesized to be the name or epithet of a major Minoan goddess, perhaps related to the Near Eastern goddess Astarte or Ishtar. But this is speculative. Other recurring sequences, like I, P, INA, AME, IDAMATE, possibly related to Mount Ida on Crete, or KURO, meaning total or balanced U, one of the few words whose meaning is fairly certain due to its contextual use with numbers, offer tantalizing clues but not a full understanding. The efforts to decipher Linear continue. Scholars meticulously catalog every inscription, analyze sign frequencies, compare sign groups across different texts, and look for grammatical patterns, like potential prefixes or suffixes, that might indicate case endings or verb conjugations. The Linear, a database maintained by John Younger, is a crucial resource for researchers. Some place names known from later Greek texts or Linear B tablets, like Knossos, Phaistos, Kintonia, have been tentatively identified in Linear A, which helps to anchor some phonetic values. However, without a bilingual text or a clear linguistic affiliation, progress is slow and painstaking. Each small potential identification is heavily debated. Unlocking Linear A would be like hearing the Minoan speak for the first time. It would revolutionize our understanding of this brilliant Bronze Age civilization. We could learn the true names of their gods and goddesses, understand their religious rituals beyond what archaeology can tell us, read their own accounts of their social and political organization, and perhaps even discover their myths and legends. Who were the people behind the names like a K, a RU, or KUPNU that appear on the tablets? What stories did they tell? The script is a beautiful, elegant system that clearly served a complex society for centuries. The fact that we can voice its syllables but not grasp their meaning makes Linear A one of the most compelling and frustrating puzzles in the study of ancient languages. It's a language on the tip of our tongues, yet just beyond our comprehension, a silent melody from a lost world. Number 1. Indus Script, Harappan Script. We now arrive at one of the most enigmatic and debated undeciphered scripts in the world, the Indus Script, also known as the Harappan Script. This writing system belonged to the Indus Valley Civilization, IVC, one of the oldest urban civilizations, which flourished around 2600 to 1900 BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India. This was a vast and sophisticated culture, contemporaneous with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, known for its well-planned cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, advanced sanitation systems, standardized weights and measures, and extensive trade networks. And yet, despite their evident complexity, their language and script remain a profound mystery. The first examples of the Indus script were discovered in the 1870s by Sir Alexander Cunningham at Harappa, but extensive discoveries came with the large-scale excavations of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro in the 1920s. Thousands of short inscriptions have since been found, typically on small, square, or rectangular steatite seals, usually just an inch or two across. These seals are often beautifully carved with intricate animal motifs, unicorns the most common, bulls, elephants, rhinoceroses, tigers, alongside a short string of Indus symbols. Inscriptions are also found on miniature tablets made of steatite or faience pottery, copper tablets, bronze implements, and even ivory rods. However, a striking feature of the Indus script is the brevity of the texts. The average inscription is only about 5 signs long, and the longest coherent text found on a single surface is just serpentine signs, though a signboard-like object found at Dolavira contains a sequence of 10 large signs. There are no long-running texts like those found in Egypt or Mesopotamia, no monumental inscriptions on buildings, and, crucially, no bilingual texts like a Rosetta Stone to provide a key. The script itself is largely pictographic, with signs depicting humans, animals, plants, and various geometric shapes, but many signs are also abstract. Scholars have catalogued around 400 to 600 distinct signs, though some argue the number of basic signs is closer to 400, with the rest being variants or combinations. The direction of writing is generally agreed to be from right to left, as evidenced by cramping of signs on the left end of some inscriptions or by overlapping incised signs. The challenges to decipherment are immense. First, as mentioned, the inscriptions are incredibly short. This makes it very difficult to perform the kind of statistical analysis of sign frequencies and co-occurrences that is crucial for breaking an unknown script. Imagine trying to decipher English if all you had were thousands of Twitter handles or short product labels. Second, the underlying language, or languages, recorded by the script is unknown. Numerous hypotheses have been proposed. Many researchers, notably Asko Parpola, a Finnish Indologist, argue that the language belongs to the Dravidian family, which includes languages like Tamil, Telugu, and Kannada still spoken today, mainly in South India but also with pockets in Pakistan, Burhoi. Proponents point to some structural similarities and attempt to match Indus signs with reconstructed Proto-Dravidian words, often related to the iconography on the seals. For example, the common fish sign has been interpreted as representing the Dravidian word min, which can mean both fish and star, suggesting possible astronomical or divine connotations. Another group of scholars suggests an Indo-Aryan connection, proposing that the language was an early form of Sanskrit or a related Indo-Iranian language. This view is less widely supported by specialists in the script, partly because the main wave of Indo-Aryan speakers is generally thought to have entered the subcontinent later, after the decline of the mature IVC. Other suggestions have included Munda languages, spoken by tribal groups in eastern India, or even a language isolate with no known relatives. A more radical and highly controversial theory, proposed by Steve Farmer, Richard Sproat, and Michael Witzel in 2004, is that the Indus script is not a true writing system capable of encrypting speech at all. They argue that it was a system of non-linguistic symbols, akin to heraldic emblems, deity symbols, or astronomical markers, similar to the way symbols are used on signs or in religious iconography today. They point to the extreme brevity of the inscriptions, the high number of unique signs, many appearing only once, and the lack of repetition patterns expected in linguistic texts. This non-linguistic hypothesis has been strongly contested by many other scholars, who argue that the script does show structural regularities consistent with writing, such as systematic ordering of signs and demonstrable patterns of sign usage that vary by region and time period. Computational analyses by researchers like Rajesh P. and Rao have also suggested that the degree of orderliness, conditional entropy, in Indus sign sequences is more similar to linguistic scripts than to non-linguistic symbol systems. Despite decades of research by dedicated scholars worldwide, no proposed decipherment has achieved widespread acceptance. The field is fraught with claims and counterclaims, and the lack of new longer texts or a bilingual key makes verification nearly impossible. The seals themselves, with their combination of animal motifs and script, are thought to have been used for administrative and trade purposes, perhaps to mark ownership of goods, to identify merchants or officials, or as amulets. The animal depicted might have represented a clan, a deity, or a social group, and the script might have contained a personal name, title, or an administrative formula. Unlocking the Indus script would be a discovery of monumental importance. It would give a voice to a civilization that shaped the early history of South Asia. We could learn about their social structure, their governance, their religious beliefs, were the animal figures deities, totems, or something else, their myths, and perhaps the reasons for their gradual decline and eventual disappearance around 1900 BCE. What did they call themselves? What were their cities named in their own tongue? The script is the last great linguistic enigma of the ancient world's major urban civilizations. Until it is cracked, the Indus Valley civilization will continue to speak to us only through its silent, enigmatic symbols, its magnificent ruins, and the tantalizing possibility of a lost literary world waiting to be rediscovered. Each tiny seal holds a fragment of a vast, unread library,